Hey, by this is Stitch 1993. Welcome to. I don't know what we're going to title this. I just realized that as soon as I pressed record, I was like, I don't have a title. This is just. Okay, so we have. I'll put up a picture here. Uh, Two giant bookshelves that are, I think, seven. Oh no, maybe 8 feet tall, full of DVDs. About. Last time I checked, we are close to 1,300 movies, and that's not including television shows. Me, as well as a special guest, decided we're going to talk through each genre and go through each movie. So every genre is in alphabetical order, and then every movie is in alphabetical order for the most part. So we're going to do this once a month at the end of the month, and so the special guest is my wife.
Hey, everybody.
So, Miss Stitch Night, I don't know what you want to go by. No.
Haven't really thought of that. We're just
Okay.
gonna see what happens.
All right. So, this is going to be the action adventure set today. This set is for like movies that I guess could go into a lot of genres. So we're like, well, technically they're action adventure movies. This is like stuff that's like, it's not a Disney film, it's not a straight up comedy, it's not a straight up drama. It's kind of a little bit of like either two or three things, so it doesn't fit really snug there. Mainly like, we'll go into them. So, yeah. All right. So you want to start off with the first movie because you're more of a fan of this one.
All right, so this is a guilty pleasure of mine. It's 2012. I've been a John Cusack fan since I was a toddler. Blame my mother. It's just a lot of fun. It's this goofy little movie. None of it really flows well, but it's a good shut your brain off
And
destruction movie.
if you try to think, mm-mm. Yeah, I definitely agree with shut your brain off. It will make you shut your brain off movie, honestly. I just not, as much as I like the director, this is probably not one of his best films. It is a silly movie, though, so yeah, if you just want to, this is one some more like just, you want to put it in the background and do something else kind of film. Yeah, I'd like outside of like the stuff they show in the trailer. I don't in the end. I remember the ending because it was on the boat and was so stupid with the dad that's like the stepdad that's like her fiance or whatever that's like been so nice, and they're like, oh no, but we need to get the couple back together, so he's gonna die in the dumbest way possible, get his
Yeah.
what is it, his tie stuck in like the little gears or what, or his shirt or whatever. Basically, he's like, go on without me. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So moving on is one of mine. Batman the movie. So this is the 1966 Adam West Batman movie that is where like a lot of the memes come from. It's the one with the shark spray, or shark repellent spray, the line, some days you just can't get rid of a bomb. For those who haven't seen it, it is Batman and Robin versus probably the biggest slew of villains that Batman's ever gone up against in one film, like ever. So we've got Catwoman, the Joker, the Riddler, and the Penguin, all in cahoots with each other. Which is really interesting because nowadays, whenever you hear there's a movie that's going to have more than maybe one or two villains, you're like, oh no, this is not going to go well. Looking at you, Sam Raimi, or most Spider-Man films outside of Far From Home, you were like one of the few exceptions to the rule.
Not Far From Home. It was a No Way Home.
No Way Home. Okay, so yeah, but this one did it, I think, pretty well. I know you didn't grow up with this show in movies, so you don't have nostalgic like I do.
I didn't. I'm not nostalgic for it. I'm sure with it being Eartha Kitt and Adam West, it was great. I just don't remember it. I don't even remember watching it.
Okay. Um, And then the next one's another one of mine. Um, so this is Big Trouble in Little China. This is by, I believe, John Carpenter, and I much really just enjoy this film for the aesthetic, for all the um, special, physical special effects. This is definitely, I believe this is mid 1980s or late 1980s. So a lot of practical creature effects. Really weird story. I keep seeing, and I've watched this movie a good handful of times. I've never picked up on it, but apparently the the main character, what's his name, the trucker, I forget his name right now, but apparently he's not like, for the movie, I guess he's the main character, but as far as the adventure, he's technically supposed to be the sidekick, and the Asian dude is supposed to be the hero. I never saw that. I just kind of saw them all as one big group trying to deal with this, ancient, I think it's ancient Chinese, ancient Japanese, um, lord, and all the stuff that they throw at him. I know you have thoughts on this film.
Okay, I really don't like this movie. One, I've realized I'm not a huge fan of John Carpenter movies. I'm not a big fan of the aesthetic. Also, the weird bug demon thing weirded me out. I didn't really like that. It felt off tonally, like it couldn't decide what kind of movie it wanted to be. And usually I love Kurt Russell, but I didn't like him in this movie.
That's who it was. Yeah, okay. What we got next?
Goonies!
I'll let you start on this one because I've been talking about a couple.
Okay, so if you're a child of the 80s or 90s and you haven't seen Goonies, what are you doing with your life? It's a classic. It's so much fun. It's one of those movies that you watch on a stormy summer day when you literally can't go outside and play. So you're watching these kids have this grand adventure and getting into all this trouble. And it just kind of makes you feel like you're a part of it without having to go outside and actually put yourself in danger.
Yeah. And nowadays, it's like just kind of a fun little movie to watch and like see all these. They weren't really big names at the time, but it is interesting watching all these kids, and you're like, oh look, it's Frodo and Ouroboros, and half these other people that would go on to do other. I mean, this was a big movie, and I guess would be still considered, but it's just interesting watching, have this, preteens and teens, and you're like, before they were who they are today and are more well known for, I guess, now. And it even has a nicer, even another layer to where Chunk, is that his name, the fat kid?
I've always called him Chunk. I don't remember if that's his name.
Well,
in the movie.
they all had nicknames, but so Chunk is like a film lawyer now, and he is the reason that Hugh Can, I'm sorry, I'm messing his name up there. The dad from Everything Everywhere All at Once. He helped him get back into the game after he's saw that Asians were starting to be in bigger roles in films now. So that is he's kind of that childhood friendship helped him helped him get to where he is nowadays, and helped him get his Oscar and be in a whole bunch of cooler shows and movies. So I just feel like that's a really nice extra story to there. What do we got next?
The Kingsman movies 1 and 2.
All right, I'll let you talk about. We'll talk about the first one, and then we'll talk about the second one.
So the first one was a lot of fun. It was really raunchy. The very end of it, I remember feeling a little dirty watching that. But it was my first introduction to Taron Egerton, and I've really grown to enjoy pretty much everything he's in. I just don't like the Sing movies. It's like the only thing of his that I don't like.
Yeah.
But between him and Colin Firth, you're just gonna have so much fun watching these movies.
And Samuel L. Jackson is
Yeah.
the villain with a lisp.
It was so weird hearing Nick Fury with the lisp.
Big Mac. No, I agree. The first one, I very much enjoy. I like the whole there's this villain stuff, but I like him going through all the training and stuff and showing, because most of the time they're just with these type of spy movies, they're already in the field. They're already even with the parody ones like Austin Powers. He's already Austin Powers. You don't see him. Thank God we haven't seen a prequel. I'm gonna say that, and then next week we're gonna get Austin Powers the prequel.
No.
Starring Taron Egerton. I'm like, well, maybe I'll see it.
Yep.
I might see it. But going back, so it's really nice just showing him being trained and him literally coming from I guess the ghetto or the slums area, and turning into what he would be in the end film, and all the fight scenes are awesome. Of course, this one has got that big church fight scene that everybody likes to talk about. But I always like I prefer the bar scene.
Yes.
Just because it shows off the umbrella, him being able to use everything with the umbrella, and kind of shows Taron that's the first time where Taron's like, oh, he means he's serious, and this is actually something that seems up my alley to do. All the side characters, you mentioned Colin Firth, but I've also got to mention what is his name? I just know him as Merlin.
Mark Strong.
Mark Strong, and I forgot the female character's name, but she's really good in it. Which segues me into the second one. I hate that, in the first 10 minutes, they kill off her and all the other characters that made the first one so interesting. And so now it's just literally him and a whole new American cast of characters. It's still a fine film. It's not bad, but it definitely is a step down from the first one. I feel like, I know how you were talking about Big Trouble in Little China not sure what it wanted to be. I felt like Kingsman 2 wasn't sure whether it wanted to be more comedy or more action, whereas the first one did a really good job balancing the two. I feel like at times this film, Kingsman 2, The Golden Circle, didn't know what it to want to be, and I felt like it introduced way too many characters.
It definitely introduced way too many characters. I will say, the whole middle of the movie is very wishy-washy on what it wants to be. But it still kind of packs a little bit of a gut punch at the end of it when, if you haven't seen it, this is a little bit of a spoiler for it. We do lose Merlin.
Yeah.
And that actually really upset me while I was watching it. But then, right around the same time, you get random Elton John.
Right. Fighting and stuff.
Which, that put a smile on my face. Just anytime I see Elton John, I get a smile on my face.
Yeah. But I will say the one interesting thing was that with a lot of these spy movies, go back to James Bond, Austin Powers, the kind of, in the next film, they always try to explain away the love interest or the girl that he gets so that he can have a new girl by the next one, whereas this one he does carry over. We see him actually dating this princess. She's supposed to be a princess, right?
I believe so.
Princess, and she's with the family and stuff, and it sounds like they've actually had a decent relationship for the most part there.
She's still a little bit of a wild girl herself.
Yeah. But I do, I do like that where they didn't just like, oh yeah, it just didn't work out, and we see because they could have gone that so easily with that. Yeah, when he had to do the spying on that one girl, they could have easily made her the love interest, or the whole time I'm thinking from the first one they were going to make his like the female spy girl like his love interest, but no, they just became friends, which I didn't mind. And then they just killed her off, and I was like, well, there
Yeah.
went all that character development.
I really hated that they killed her off because they were kind of building up that they kind of built like a sibling bond between
Yeah.
them, which was really fun to watch because you don't ever really get that in spy movies.
Mm-hmm.
It's either a power dynamic where the guy spy has more power in the friendship or the relationship than the female spy. But in this one, they were on the same level. She actually was stronger in him in moments than he was, and then they just kill her.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess, it's always one of those films where if you don't see a body, they're technically not dead, because they did bring Colin Firth back.
They did.
So they could always, if they ever do a third one, they could always bring her back and explain it in a weird way of how they explain Colin Firth coming back.
It was really strange, and it did dampen the effect of his death in the first one, because I was devastated when he died in the first one.
But then it's like, oh yeah, we got to him in time and had this weird little ice pack thing to where he has some memory issues for a little while, but then he gets those back. I feel like if I would have liked it, and this is just me personally, if they were bringing him, since they did bring him back, if he like had kept his memory loss, and at the end of it they just kind of had part ways, and Taran is now like having to basically start the Kingsmen back over because he's now like the only person that is aware of that, of the British side of that special spy network. But that's just me.
Like, it'd just be him and Merlin having to start everything over, and then you don't have to kill Merlin,
Right.
Because I really enjoyed Merlin.
All right. Secondhand Lions.
All right, so Secondhand Lions, because it's mostly just like a lot of little vignettes of these old men telling their great nephew stories of their lives. It reminds me of being little and sitting down listening to my grandpa tell his wartime stories.
Same here.
So it's nostalgic for me in that sense, but I also can't watch it very often without crying because it takes me back to there.
I do enjoy that as outside of the epic adventures that they tell, when it's not about their past lives. It's kind of just like a slice of life. Kid growing up with the two uncles, two brothers,
Yeah.
and just having to get along because at the beginning he doesn't really want to be there, and they don't really want him to be there. But it's one of those, they're forced to hang out together and eventually learn to love each other's little quirks and stuff. And he learns to grow as a teen going into his adult year, or I guess preteen going into his teen years, and they learn, to be just a bit, I guess, fatherly or something, when it's probably been, decades since they've had to deal with anybody outside of people that come to like, try to sell them stuff. To where at the point by the time, because it's his mom that like drops him off there to begin with, and that by the end of it he like doesn't even want to go back with his mom, and he just decides to stay there. I even do like the ending, where it kind of, I don't remember which movie came out first, this or Big Fish, but I think as much as I like Big Fish, I think this did the ending better, where because in the end of Big Fish you find out technically he was telling the truth on those stories with a spin to them. Whereas this one, that was straight up what actually happened, because then that prince is like, oh yeah, my grandfather's told me all these stories about his two uncles, and I'm, we're rich, and yeah, that did happen. And so he's like, oh, cool. And so I just really like that ending, that they went out how they came in, just with, doing weird, wacky stuff there. So I very much enjoy. Yeah, definitely check that out. So the next one is gonna be Shazam. I'm gonna go talk about that one because, as I mentioned in my 15 years of collecting movie tickets, if you haven't checked that video out, check it out. It's 3.5 hours long, so it's gonna be a lot longer than this video is. But just to reiterate, so growing up, I did not know that my grandpa on my mom's side was into comic books at all. Never talked about it. Never spoke about it. And he did have like some of the old like Superman serials, and I think he even had some of the uh, movies, the '60s Superman movies. But he never really. We didn't sit down and watch them. He never really talked about them to me. Fast forward to I'm in high school. He has passed away, and I'm getting into manga and drawing comics and stuff. And I show my drawings to my grandma, and she's like, "Oh, that looks like the comics that your grandpa um, collected." I'm like, "I'm sorry, he collected comic books?" And she's like, "Yeah, there's like." She's like, there's like a folder in our bedroom you can go get. So I pull out, I find one folder, and it's not a folder. It's like almost like a purse full of like just 70s and 80s Shazam comic books with some like Marvel comic books in there. And I pull it up, and she's like, "Oh, no, not that one." I was like, "What?" And she pulls out like this suitcase that has even more in there, and like these like really giant comic books too, and it's got some more Shazam. Like so that's when I learned my grandpa was a really big fan of Shazam. So I just kind of read all those comics. I still have them to this day here. So yeah, fast forward, and then we got a Shazam movie coming out. I feel like it was casted perfectly. Really good tone. I love the end battle where they include the Shazamily, showing how all the kids eventually get the Shazam powers. I just love the adult versions of all the kids and their reactions to everything. It was a really fun ride, really dark. This is one of the few villains that I'm just like, oh, this is like a really bad villain. You don't like this isn't like he's just quippy and stuff. Nah, this is straight up murderous too kind of dude. And I thought that was really cool as well. Your thoughts?
So I'm not as into the DC heroes as you are, so this was my first introduction to Shazam, and the only reason I was excited to see this movie is because I really like Zachary Levi.
Fair enough.
That being said, I did really enjoy it. I got really into it. The kids' performances were so cute. The smallest girl, the littlest girl, had my heart the whole movie. And then when they turned into the adults for random Adam Brody. And the only thing that popped in my mind when I saw Adam Brody, and this is going to date me, is my brain immediately went to, oh, that's where Dave from Gilmore Girls went. He wasn't actually a teenager at that time. He was a little boy that turned into a teenager. I know, my brain works weird.
Yeah, but I'm going back to that little girl. She's the adult, and she like runs up to Santa.
Santa gets so weirded out.
Oh goodness.
She was so cute. She had my heart the whole movie.
You did. All right. This is the so next one is the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes films. I'll let you start.
So I saw both of these in theaters when they came out because I grew up with the Sherlock Holmes stories because my grandpa had them, and then I ended up having to read them in school because I was in the honors and AP classes. And then it had Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law in it, and that was it for me. I was done. I was sold. And I get to him. I'm sitting there watching them. Robert Downey Jr. is always entertaining. Jude Law was a little more understated than I wanted him to be. Like, I wanted a little bit more reaction from him. Like, I know Watson's the calmer of the two. But there should have been a little bit more exasperation when Sherlock is going off and doing his stuff and he's getting annoyed with them. Because there's only so much you can take, even if it is your best friend, and he's just a little too passive.
So I grew up. I also grew up with the books just because they really interest me, and also grew up with the Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes movies. Which, as much as I like Robert Downey Jr., Basil Rathbone will always be the Sherlock Holmes
That's
to
fair.
me.
That's fair.
So, but going into the films, I saw the first one in theaters, and I believe I rented the second one later. Both really good films for what they are. They are a bit too action-y for me. Almost none of the books that I read, Sherlock ever does like hand-to-hand combat and is like thinking a process through
Yeah.
how he's going to be doing said hand-to-hand combat. Anytime there's ever like trouble, he's already like 3 steps ahead to where if somebody's got a gun on him, he's got a gun hidden somewhere on the eye, or he has Watson hiding to, come up from behind afterwards. So that always took me out. Those scenes took me out. They're cool scenes, but they're like, this is not Sherlock Holmes. I do agree. I also Watson has always been an older gentleman for me. Like, he is supposed to be a retired World War One. I forget what his rank is, but he was in the military, and I believe he's supposed to be. I'm not sure if he did combat or if he was in the Red Cross, but he's definitely has more age to him than Sherlock. I think there's more supposed to be, instead of like where Sherlock and Jude Law probably have like a 2 to 3 to maybe a 5-year age difference. Most of the time, Sherlock and Watson have like a 10 to maybe 15-year age difference. I always, I know it's like you want to get younger people in there, so they try to get who's the biggest names at the time. And Jude Law does do a fine job.
He's just not Watson.
And because he's so young, he's always playing kind of, Watson's always played dumb to Sherlock, but Watson also, because he has the history of being in the war and stuff, knows stuff that Sherlock doesn't sometimes, which helps him out. Whereas I feel like Sherlock is just having to explain stuff to Jude Law every time they're doing stuff, and I never get that Watson. There's never a reason for Watson to be there other than to banter with Sherlock. Fun films, and the same can be said with the second one. I do like Moriarty. I feel like that was perfectly casted.
Yeah.
I wish we didn't just have him killed off, because he's like one of the bigger villains. But maybe I'm misremembering that, but I believe Moriarty gets killed off in the second film.
I believe it's supposed to be one of those, it's killed off in case they don't make a third one, but it's possible that they could have found some way to shoehorn him back in if there is a third one.
Yeah, I also don't like that they quote-unquote killed off Sherlock for the second film. Only to, in the last scene, show that he was never dead. I'm like, Sherlock doesn't die. Like, there's books where he is an older person, older gentleman, and there's even films about him being, an older person and not being able to. Basically, he has more experience, but he's not as fast about it. So I don't know why they try to do that little "haha, he's dead" kind of thing there, because you can always. I'm sure Robert likes doing these movies, so he can always come back and do another. I know the kind of like, by the time the second one came out, the Marvel universe was really picking up steam, so they're like, we don't know if we're ever going to be able to make him know, but he's done with that now. We can go back. So, all right, next one is Sin City. So I thoroughly enjoy this film. I'm not the biggest Robert Rodriguez fan for his adult films. I much more enjoy his films aimed at children. This one, I do like the art style, the nice black and white, and then there's sometimes a bit of like red or yellow coloring. I didn't grow up with the comic books. I don't know how accurate it is or how much they try to squeeze into. I do know there's a lot of plot points, and it does sometimes jump around a little bit as far as storytelling, kind of like Pulp Fiction. But it is pretty extreme with some of the gratuity for one thing or another, and it's just such a cool film. Just to especially if you're like getting into film, especially like film noir. I feel like this is one that is a must see, just to see where the genre is. Not nowadays ish, because I know this movie is like almost 20 years old or so. But I know you have other thoughts on it.
So I don't like this one.
Okay.
I've only seen it maybe twice in my entire life, and both times I've just left feeling gross. I'm, again, like you said, I'm not a huge fan of this director's work for like his adult movies. But it was just unsettling for me. I didn't enjoy it. It's not something that I would ever go back and willingly watch again.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, the next film you have never seen.
I haven't, so I'm not going to talk about this one because I have no...
Fair enough.
No idea.
So Speed Racer by the Wachowskis is probably one of the, up until recently, probably one of the best anime adaptations we ever had. It's just as colorful and vibrant of a film. I feel like everybody acted well. It's got John Goodman. It's got Christina Ricci in there. And just overall fun action film. And it's like one of the few, I don't get into like Fast and Furious and stuff. So it's one of the few racing movies that I ever got into. It's probably more because it's Speed Racer than because, although it does have a good bit of racing in it, but man, does it feels like a video game watching it half the time there. Yeah, so I know you don't have thoughts on it, so we'll go into the next one. White House Down. This is more you, so take it away.
Okay, so I saw this one in theaters with, I believe, my dad, my brothers, and I think one other person, I'm not sure. I think. We had a lot of fun watching it. It's got Channing Tatum and Jamie Foxx in it, and you can get me to watch almost anything with Jamie Foxx in it. I think he's hilarious. It was a lot of fun to sit down and watch. The terrorists in the movie try to take it seriously. Like, they're the only ones in the entire movie taking the movie seriously. Everybody else is just there for the ride.
So, with Sin City, this is one that I just couldn't get into. I'm just not into these type of, I guess this wasn't like a destruction movie, but it's kind of like a destruction movie where it's just like, oh, what happened if this? It's just, Channing Tatum and Jamie Foxx are great, but they have better both of them have better movies.
Fair enough, they really do.
To where I've never really, after watching this, I think I watched it with you, I've never wanted to go back and watch it again. It's as interesting as it is of a plot idea, it's just so boring. And yeah, you're right, the terrorists are like the only ones taking it. I feel like if the terrorists were like over the top and silly, or just had more character in them, like they're just, terrorists.
Yeah.
Whereas if we had somebody like, I don't know, you could either have a big drama actor or a big comedy actor being like the main terrorist, being able to play off of Jamie Foxx and Channing Tatum, I think it would have been a much more fun film.
Yeah, I mean, even the big idea guy behind the terrorists isn't taking it seriously. He's in, like, this bunker type room, messing with all the electronics and just having fun with it while the terrorists are trying to take everything so seriously, and Jamie Foxx is talking about his shoes.
Yeah. Alrighty. So we've come to Wonder Woman. I must say this here. I do enjoy it until the final act. It's really weird because it feels like it's really building up to no matter what she does, you know, human nature is human nature and we're just going to fight and stuff. Oh, but no. Actually, there is a God of War, and it's played by freaking Remus. And it just looks so weird because he's so throughout the whole movie he's so frail looking. He still looks like Remus.
Yeah.
To where by the time that they're doing battle, it just looks so stupid. And then they fight in the end, and then everybody stops fighting. It would have been great if like after she like kills him, then still sees, oh well, he thought he had power over him, and no, it's just human nature. But no. Also, the the longer this film has been out, the more I've kind of, you know, it's kind of gone from it's a great film to like, it's okay, just because the actress that we just kind of seen, that's just kind of, she just plays the one note type of style to her, which is very almost wooden in regards to reactions, facial features and stuff, just very, which is fine for Wonder Woman at the beginning, but Wonder Woman eventually does have a personality, a much more interesting personality than what she shows off here. And then there's Wonder Woman 1984, which we're not going to talk about that one because we don't own it. So that's just my thoughts. It's just kind of that, and just kind of has just lowered this film down.
I mean, I do agree with all of that. Chris Pine works for me in this movie, but the fact that they ended up bringing him back for the sequel cheapens his performance in the first one.
Yeah.
Again, everything with Remus Lupin being the villain just did not sit well with me. One, I don't really like when he plays a villain. It just doesn't come off convincing. And I agree, like, it should have just been that, yeah, she has this big battle with what's supposed to be the God of War, but it's human nature that's affecting this war, not this dude who thinks he has all this power. It should have just been him getting the kick in the pants and realizing, oh, yeah, I don't control anything.
Yeah. I would think it'd been kind of interesting if they kind of played it up where everybody thinks that there's these, the Amazons think they're this, and the God of War thinks they're that, and they find out, in this day and age, the comic book gods, don't really have power as much as they thought they did, because now, you've got people like Superman and Shazam and stuff running around to where, I don't know, it feels like it could have been just a little bit more time in the writer's room. So now we come to our last film. We only have the second one because we just haven't gotten around to getting the other films. And it's X-Men 2. We had to look up a trailer for this one before recording it because I as soon as she mentioned it, I honestly could not tell you what happens in this film outside of introducing Nightcrawler and Magneto being in the glass plastic prison for half the movie, but then getting out with probably one of the weirdest ways, which is pulling iron out of a person, which is that's not how it works.
No.
So I don't really have much thoughts on this film just because I don't remember. I remember 1, and I really remember 3, but 2 is just there. It just kind of the bridge between the two. Meh.
Okay, so the reason we have X2 but not the other ones, 1, because 3 is bad.
Fair enough.
2, we got this in a box set from Second and Charles, where it was like the big 50 DVD boxes where it was just random movies.
And for those who don't know, Second Charles is this kind of secondhand store. I would say it's a lot better than like a Goodwill, but they do primarily just sell DVDs and books. And I don't know, but if they still do it, but at the time, this was 2021, 22, in the front of their store, they had these boxes that was, a blind box, and you'd pay like I think $20 or $50, and you'd get, you wouldn't know what DVDs were in the box until you brought it home. So yeah, I do remember that's how we got this film.
I do remember enjoying 2 more than 1 and 3. 1 just felt off to me when I was little. 2, everyone's kind of settled into their roles. Everyone kind of knows what they're supposed to be doing. You kind of feel like the ones who hadn't familiarized themselves with the character before filming 1 had realized, oh, we probably need to figure out who it is we're actually playing so that it's more convincing in this one. Mm-hmm. The performances were stronger. But the story is just kind of the same story as 3, but not as convoluted. Mm-hmm. Which is probably why I enjoy it more, because that comic that 3 is supposed to be set on is one of the big tentpole X-Men comics. Yeah. And then they just watered it down and didn't really go all the way with it, whereas you can kind of see the legwork being set up to do it properly in 2, and then they fumbled it.
Yeah. So that's going to take the end to Action Venture. I just said some of these movies could have been in other genres. They just, because of their tone or because of their direction, they could have been in multiple. So we just kind of bunched them into this little tiny genre we have of action adventure sets. We'll be doing these once a month at the end of the month, going through animation, comedy, Disney, drama, horror, holiday, musicals, sci-fi, rom-coms, and series, and we might do some other ones in between them. So check back with us next month. We'll be going over our animation, which will be a lot longer of a video. And until next time, thank you and have a good day.